Hey guys, it's me, Ashley.
And I'm Aaron.
And I'm Garrett with a new mic.
Hey, we can hear you.
Welcome to Nostalgia. Garrett, we hired Garrett on full time. The pay is awesome. The benefits are great.
Oh my God. My 401k.
He can quit the forklift business and join us balling out at this time at any time. So
it does sound good to hear you. We missed you. You were so far away.
It sounded like I was in a fishbowl last time when you played it for me. I was like, oh my God, I've got to get a mic. These people are going to be like, he needs to go.
It sounded fine on my end, except for just it was like hello.
I feel like the jokes landed. You really round us out. I'm glad that you're back. So in this episode, we're going to talk about Saturday morning cartoons. We actually thought we were going to cover a lot more ground with the Saturday morning cartoons. We had a long list. And then once we started doing our research, we were like, nope, we can cover one cartoon each.
Yeah, there's so much to these shows that you never realize and actually never really think about, but there's a lot.
I think it would be doing people a disservice too to just go high level. We went into some fun facts, some theories.
Oh yeah.
All the things that you need to know about these cartoons. And we did want to put out a spoiler alert. Jem came out in 1985, but if you have not watched it, this would be a good time. Thundercats will also be covering and Scooby-Doo.
Yeah, if you don't know that the villain isn't some old white man at the end of then I'm sorry. I apologize.
Yeah, then skip this episode. And we are going to do a series of Saturday morning cartoons because there was such a good list. We definitely have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Smurfs, G.I. Joe, and So
if you have any suggestions, you can contact us through our email and on all major social media sites. Shameless plug. That wasn't forced in there in any way.
I know. We just talked about it, so you were like, okay, I'm going to get into it. We're going to talk about Jem first, and I'm pulling an Aaron. I brought toys with me. You can't see them, but I actually have the Misfits dolls. I had all of them at one point, but these were my favorite characters we'll talk about, and I kept them, and I have a naked one with one hand.
Oh my God, she's nude.
I know. This is that kind of podcast. We are very risque.
Scandalous.
All right, on Jem, I have Jem tattoos on my feet. So clearly Jem was my jam. She came out in 1985. The cartoon was actually an advertisement for dolls. The dolls came out before the cartoon. Hasbro put out these dolls and then hired, her name is Christy Marks, and she did a lot of writing on G.I. Joe and on Transformers, and they were very successful. So they're like, hey, can you make a backstory for these dolls? And that's how Jem got started. The dolls that got released later were released because of the cartoon. And I was watching interviews with Christy Marks, and she made a little jab about how she didn't make any money off of them. She's like, oh, I created the story around the dolls. Then my characters got made into dolls later. And she's like, I didn't see any kickbacks from that. So I was like,
yeah.
Girl. They were really to compete with Barbie because Barbie was so successful that they were like, we're going to come out with our own dolls.
I can see that.
Yeah, size-wise, they're a little bit bigger than Barbie. If you've ever tried to play with both, which I totally did, Jem dolls are bigger. They're about 2 feet and Barbie inches taller. And I always thought that was cooler, to be honest with you. And they have really cool outfits. But another major thing when Jem came out was it was the only girls cartoon. It was 7-minute segments in between the boys cartoons. So I was watching the DVDs. There's an ending. It is like a mega cliffhanger. They are falling off a cliff and then it ends. And that's to keep you coming back in between the cartoons because you're only getting a 7-minute segment. Then once it became more popular, they married those together to make the full episodes. And Christy was saying they had to do filler stuff in there. So there's scenes that don't fit. Or if they reuse music videos, it's because they were short on time. So
gotta fill it in. I noticed too when I watched a couple episodes when they went to commercial break, it was like, this is Jem, we'll be right back, and then when it came back, I forgot all about that.
I did too. I was actually like, this is super annoying because when you're watching it as a full episode, it's still showing the commercial breaks, and at every commercial break it goes, and we'll be right back with Jem, and then it's like, and now you're watching Jem, and you're watching an episode and you see this like 4 times and you're like, dude.
But I forgot that a lot of cartoons did that when we were younger.
Yeah, they did.
So on the DVDs they had all of the PSAs for Jem. And I was like, we're going to do a PSA episode because some of them, it went from being kidnapped to picking up a power line to riding your bike on the wrong side of the road.
Now, did they have any kind of catchphrase like the G.I. Joe ones, like knowing's half the battle, or now you know?
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah, Jem says, and that makes you a superstar. Like knowing
yes,
makes you a superstar. We have got to do an episode on these. They were great. So there were 3 seasons in Jem. 1985 is when it came out, and 1988. And like we talked about, it was all boys cartoons. They had She-Ra, but she was a spinoff from He-Man, and she was a superhero. Right. And, you had Rainbow Bright, but same things. I was trying to think of other girls' cartoons. Like you have Care Bears, you had Hug a Bunch, but they were all really young. So if you don't know the premise of Jem, the big thing was romance, fashion, and music. In the theme song, it is glamour, glitter, fashion, and fame. That is Jem's life.
Yeah, like it's super metal.
Oh, yeah. Just some of the little fun quirks in it. They always use punk rockers as the bad guys. Anytime there was like a riot, it was skinheads coming in. I was watching, where they talk along with it. And Christy Marks is like, I have no idea why that guy's dressed like a pirate.
They just have a random pirate.
Yeah. But I remember we talking about it's always the guy with real big purple mohawk and the earring. Like,
these are like Jem's
leather jacket.
Yes. And one of them, they're not wearing shoes or they don't have a shirt on it. I just thought that was really funny. That was always punk rockers. So when you watch Jem, the animation was done in Japan. So it's not full on Japan animation, but you can definitely see just by the fashion and I don't know, the way they use the kind of pointed edges and facial expressions that it definitely has Japanese qualities, but not like your Howl's Moving Castle or whatever. Some of it was done in South Korea too.
So it's not like anime, it's actually like cartoon.
Yeah, it's not anime, but you can see the style a little bit.
You can.
Yeah. When you watch it. I'm going to go into the premise of Jem. If you've never watched it, on the back of the DVD, it says, after her father passes away, Jerrica inherits half of his company, Starlight Music. The other half has been given to Eric Raymond. Raymond exploits the company to promote a band called The Misfits. Jerrica doesn't believe that this was her father's plan, and she is powerless to do anything about it. That is until a remarkable computer companion, Synergy, enters her life. So the premise of Jem is there's a girl named Jerrica. Her father dies and she inherits his music company. But he also has a home for orphan girls that she's also running. So that's kind of a weird.
Wow, she is busy.
And the house is like falling apart. So she finds out that her dad's partner is going to run the company however he wants, and she's not having it. And then she gets these earrings in the mail. And she finds out that her father has built her a computer that helps her with holograms and stuff. The plan was to only use Synergy one time as Jem to win this music competition from Eric. And then, of course, she ends up being Jem forever. The thing about Jerrica and Jem is nobody knows that they are the same person. Dun, dun, dun. Well, not nobody. The band knows.
I was going to say, people know, I think.
Who is this girl?
You got really quiet when I said that.
And it's kind of like Superman. The only thing that's different is her clothes and her hair color, right? Like, isn't everything else the same? Pretty much?
No, she's super a different person. Jerrica is kind of like really nice and plain. And that's the other part of it is Jerrica gets to be a rock star. So yes, the band knows. They all find out together about Synergy and they automatically turn into the band right there. And Synergy can change the way they look and she puts clothes on them. So even some of the band members are Synergy's creation. They're not like that cool in real life.
One of my notes that I have down here is because I watched the first couple episodes and it was when Synergy shows up, nobody really questioned the ghost of rock and roll past because she just kind of pops in and
I know. She just puts on her earrings and she's like, oh, here I am. And they're like,
they don't question her. She tells them to drive through this wall to the secret layer and they're just like, okay.
Well,
just drive right
was
through
like, we can. She said, I have a hunch. I'm like, the hunch is someone told you to drive through the wall. It's not like
Jerrica's drinking again.
Turns around and takes her to rehab. The other thing I did notice when I rewatched it was the first thing that Synergy says is from Labyrinth. She says things aren't always what they appear. And I was just like, oh my God, I love that so much.
I missed that.
I would have never equated those two things together.
I'm like, I hear Labyrinth in everything, basically. I'm like, did they say that in Labyrinth? Or like, he said the. I'm like, yeah. Okay, Team Jem is Jem and the Holograms. You have Jerrica, who is Jem. And then you have her sister, Kimber, who plays the guitar. I think she plays a bunch of everything. Then you have Aja, who is Jerrica, well, I guess both, their best friend. And then you have Shayna, who's the drummer. And they got good representation. Aja is Asian and Shayna is black with purple hair, and she's amazing. Then later they bring in Carmen, whose name is Rhea, and she is Hispanic. So they really rounded it out. And then with the Starlight Girls, they just have really good representation, which I thought was good for the 80s. Like, I was like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Christy Marks was saying that she really wanted Aja to have a martial arts background, but they were fighting in the studio because they wanted to be be really glamorous. So every now and then you'll see her bust out a move on somebody and be like, hey, yeah. And you get a little glimpse of it, but they never say it. There was a whole Bible. They called it the Jem Bible. And you got to see snippets of it in the special features of the DVD. And her backgrounds are, you don't even get half of the story in most of this. Aja was actually an orphan herself. And she grew up in the Starlight Mansion where she actually became part of the family. But you don't get any of that. You just see that they're best friends and they know each other really well. I was like, man, that's sad she couldn't get in there, but it's neat knowing.
Yeah, that is cool.
So then the antagonists are the Misfits. And I put Team Misfits, not to be mistaken with the Danzig band, because I get that all the time when people see my tattoo on my feet. They're like, oh, I love the Misfits. I'm like, that's not. I like Danzig
not that
a lot,
one.
but that's not what it is. The Misfits entrance was one of the things I was telling you about where they had to add it later. And it is a very strange entrance. Jerrica goes up to the Starlight Music to confront Raymond about what he's going to do with the company because she needs money because the orphanage is falling apart. And he's like, well, I'm going to promote bands like the Misfits. And all of a sudden the Misfits come in the door and they're on guitar-shaped motorcycles. And they were just riding around the room. Were they just back there waiting?
Yeah, so the door bust open and they're on these huge motorcycles shaped like guitars, and you know, they're like, I'm pizzazz, and you know,
and it's like Roxy. It's that slow entrance and their name comes up. But I just was sitting there like, how did they know Jerrica was coming? And how did they get the motorcycles to the top? You know, all those things as an adult, you're like, this doesn't make sense.
And I love it.
Eddie says
they busted in, they introduced themselves, and they instantly went into song.
Yes.
And then what I thought was cool is like when they go into a song, they do like the music video. They have like the name of the song and who it's by, you know?
That is totally something I was going to talk about in the music section. Is one of the things that nobody was doing at the time that made them so popular, because MTV was so popular, is they do music videos. They move the storyline along, but they're kind of random. It is like literally watching a music video. You're like, okay. And then they go right back to the storyline. And it just was something that nobody was doing. One of the cool things is the voice actors and the speaking actors are all different.
Really?
Voices. Yeah. So none of them are the same. They did
like none of them are the same.
All the voices were done in California. All of the music was done in New York. They never even met each other. She would send a thing saying, this is the premise of the story. This is what I want to convey. They would send back a tape. That's exactly how it worked. They never
kidding.
They never crossed paths, which is
isn't that crazy how they can film stuff so separate and then like edit it together, and it's like you would not have known unless you told me.
It's crazy to me to be a big part of something and be like, oh yeah, we work on Jem, but we've never met each other, you know, like something so successful. And I don't know if any other cartoons have done that, maybe just with the music, but so I thought that was really cool. One of the other funny things to me was character wise, everybody obviously has their own personalities, but since the Misfits are my favorite, I think theirs are like need to go into a little more detail. So Pizzazz is a spoiled rich girl. She runs the Misfits. And then you have Roxy, who's just her little sidekick who they just together get in trouble. Then you have Stormer, who's actually really nice and doesn't like to get into trouble. And she's always trying to be the voice of reason of like, do you really think? And they're mean. They definitely, in the episodes I watched, they called somebody a jerk, a pig face, and trash. And I was like, dang, these Misfits are mean. I know. So, but I did want to point out that Pizzazz's real name is Phillips, which is my grandma's name.
Oh, hey, Phillips.
Which is an awesome name, but it's not like really metal.
It's not like, hey, I'm a badass. My name is Phillips. I'm the member of a punk rock band, you know? So I thought that was funny. And then her sidekick, Roxy, always uses it like when she wants to get on her nerves. So she'll be like, okay, whatever, Phyllis. Like, she doesn't want people to know that. So one of the cool things too was we know all the first names of the characters, but their last names were actually a nod to scientists at the time who were working on holographic science. So
cool.
It was a nod to science. I had written down their names and now I can't find it, but yeah, so I thought that was really neat.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Now we have Tupac holograms and Michael Jackson, and
dude, they've come so far.
Oh man, those concerts were like when they did like Prince, and that was weird. So let me think of what else I wanna, because I don't know that bringing the other characters in is gonna bring much to the table. Some of the repeating henchmen are really funny because their names are, one of the guys is Zipper and the other guy is Tech Rat, and those are the two you're gonna see, and they have.
I can picture them in my head, just just
so
the
anytime
name.
Eric Rainman needs some dirty work done, he's of course not going to do it himself. So he has a guy named Tech Rat that's always messing with Jem's technology, even though he doesn't even know she's a hologram, but it'll be like her equipment and always gets him in trouble. Like I think it was in the second episode, Zipper breaks in Jem's house and starts a fire and burns down the orphanage. And so they end up,
he's got like the futuristic sunglasses on, like,
and they all have voices like this.
Yeah.
Like, I'm Zipper. I'm Zipper and I'm gonna burn down the house. Yeah. And then Tech Rat, he has the shaved side head and the comb over. And then you picture like the 80s blazer. And then, of course, it's always a bunch of punk rockers just hanging out.
Yeah, because they're just
punk
everywhere
rockers
waiting for a fight.
They just want to riot. That's all.
Like, hey, are you guys riding right now? Because we'll totally come in and help.
Yeah, right. Now they would just have like their own Facebook page. You're like, we're going to be riding on, or what, I don't know, probably something even newer than that I don't do. So a couple other recurring characters. They have Lindsay Pierce, who's a VJ, and she's almost in every episode. Pretty much anytime Jem and them are on TV, she's going to be there interviewing them. And there was a girl named Video who does all their music videos and stuff like that. And in the third season, they actually brought in, it was a German band called the Stingers. And they're not good, but they're not bad. Like, they're kind of just another band that's competing with them. But it's just funny because they all are really like bleach blonde Germans, and they're very just, I don't know. I just thought that was I'm like, that's a choice.
I noticed that like in the first episode when they had the battle of the bands or whatever that the Misfits were supposed to win, they brought in some bands that were like not good, like weren't supposed to win, and they had names like the Limp Lizards and like just weird names.
Yeah,
like,
in the very first episode, the whole reason she becomes Jem is because Eric Raymond is throwing on a music competition. And he sets it up to where the Misfits are going to win. And Jem shows up and it's like, but what about this band? And of course, that starts the whole rivalry. But yeah, they picked really bad bands. Christy Marks was saying that those other bands have their own Facebook pages and fan base. Like they
I bet they do.
Really?
Like, and they were not good, but I don't even know. You have to watch episode 1. But yeah,
the Limp Lizards was one of them. I remember that. I had
the
that
Limp Lizards for sure. And I can't remember the other ones either. But yeah, they weren't supposed to win. The Misfits were supposed to win the competition. The other part that's really funny about that is there's a guy named Howard Sands who shows up in a lot of episodes, and he's a music executive, and he happens to be at this battle of the bands. He's like, whoever wins, I happen to have this mansion that you would win if you, and it's like, oh, the Starlight Mansion's just burnt down, and all of a sudden he just happens to be like,
so it shows them rocking out, and then it shows like these 3 business types watching and just checking it out, and at the end it's like, I really liked what I saw. The winner of this gets an instant contract, a video deal, and this mansion.
Because that's like real life.
I know. And he just shows up all the time, and it's very convenient to show up.
Yeah. So, what do they call that when you have a character that always is like never always does something right for the plot? Is it Mary Sue or something?
I don't know.
Have you heard that before? Yeah, it's a character that basically can do no wrong or fits the mold of what
it's like. We need to move this story along, you mean? Or
it solves the problem for whatever is the plot. So if an asteroid's coming, then they turn into Superman and they're like, oh, the asteroids can be moved or whatever.
Well, I feel like I can't remember what we were watching, but I remember saying that to Dustin. I was like, the only purpose of this person is to move the story along. There is no reason for them to even be in this show. It was just like, oh, we need some conflict, so let's have so and so do something stupid. And you're like, why are you here? Like, you don't, and I can't remember what that was. Anyway. Okay. So as far as actors go, you might recognize some of them. They did voice work, but if you looked at IMDb, you wouldn't say, oh, I know them from such and such.
Yeah.
Samantha Newark did the voice of Jem and Jerrica, and despite being a singer, and when she was young, she was actually a singer in Africa, which I thought was a little strange, but she was never auditioned for the singing part. They did voices and songs. So she actually put out a country western album when she was 8 years old, and she's originally from England and moved to Africa. Yeah, she was singing at 8. She started singing at like state fairs and benefits when she was younger, and then got cast as the voice later, but never sang. But she's still in Nashville. She still has a website. She's still selling stuff. Her and the person who played Pizzazz were friends up until 2020, and then Pizzazz passed away, which is the one I was talking about earlier.
Oh man, I was like, what happened? Like, what kind of beef happened? I thought something bad.
Oh right,
like, well, something bad did happen, but I thought like they had a falling out.
Yeah.
I guess that's one way to fall
out of my way. That's one of the songs. And we did talk about one of the cool things being the music. Each episode had at least 3 songs.
I do remember it being like a music video because they had the lasers and the lights, and you wanted to jump into your TV and like go there and hang out with them. Well, I kind of wanted to hang out with the Misfits, a really, really nice, cute one, because she with her raspy voice.
Stormer.
Stormer.
Yeah, it was just so iconic. They really made you feel like you were almost a part of a music video just watching it.
What I thought was funny, it was like, and winning is everything, and then it was like, dun, 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 winning is everything, winning like
Winning is everything.
Like, you know.
It isn't how you play the game. That was one of the big things, is that they definitely tried to make it musically different. The Misfits are more like this talky punk rock thing, and then Jem, of course, is always singing about good things. But in the videos, it's always like when they're coming to a head, and then it's showing them dropping Jem off a cliff. You know, like that's the music video. Like
they put, like, she was in a banana split. She was the banana in the split one time, and they, like, it was just like, what the hell is going
like
on here?
Super exaggerated, and it was well thought out. I thought it was funny.
That is funny. As a guy, I remember they were like, "Why are you watching that?" I was like, "It was the story." I thought was really good. Well, I mean, I was 5, 6, 7, 8. Whenever I was watching it, you only have an attention span of whatever. But I always thought the stories were really good.
That's one thing about the writer having her hand in G.I. Joe and Transformers, is she said, I don't want to not write action. And so she actually made a point to really make it action packed and conflict, because she's like, I don't want them to just be playing music. Like, I want them to be battling it out.
Yeah,
so
it was fun.
It was very successful because of that. One of the things I noticed too, when I watched the first episodes, I had a theme song in my head of Jem. And then when I watched the first episode, I was like, oh my gosh, there were 2 theme songs. So this one is like, me and my friends are Jem girls. Jem is my name. And the one that I remember was Jem is outrageous. Jem is Jem. Yeah. So I'm thinking maybe that was the 3rd season, because I didn't watch the 3rd season, but I watched a lot of the beginnings of the first 2, because I was like, when did the other one come in? Yeah. So
I don't remember that first one.
I thought I was crazy because I remember it being something different, but when it came on here, I was like, well, maybe I just was wrong. You know,
and it had.
I didn't notice she said, once you're a Jem girl, you'll never be the same. I'm like, well, okay. I guess
you won't.
You never are. Yeah, I was getting ready to say.
No, I still have that music still plays up here. Like,
I'm telling you, when it came on, I was singing to all the songs, even the rando songs. They tried to do some episodes where they made the Starlight Girls sing, like they made their own music videos, and they're not musicians. And I was even singing those songs. I don't want to get too far into the Starlight Girls, but there's one who's like a little Asian girl, and her name is Bonnie, and it was actually named after somebody that the writer knew, but her dad was a soldier. She's an orphan, and he was in Vietnam and hooked up with the mom. And the mom told her, Bonnie, before she got into the orphanage, that her dad had red hair. So every guy she sees with red hair, she's like, Dad. She's like 13.
Oh
it's
my
really
God.
Awkward. Like, there was a musician. He's like, I'm not your father. You know what I mean?
Jeez.
And the video is actually really sad because it is about her dad, but I even knew those videos and I was like, oh,
that's crazy. But I mean, I'm not surprised that you remember that, because when we're that young, our brains are still developing. So those are like the foundational walls. You remember Jem before math.
Right. I mean, it would be nice to know something a little more useful, but
hey,
but
I think
all
it's
right.
useful.
I'm using it now. So I guess if we really went full circle, sure, it is. Okay, so the other thing is there was never a soundtrack that was released for Jem. When they sold the dolls, they gave out tapes. Each doll had their own tape. So they would have the Jem theme song on it, and then 2 songs that were to the character. So if it was Kimber, it would have, I don't know. I mean, she never sang, but something with maybe a major Kimber episode. And the other thing is the game had a tape with it. And I remember listening to the game tape a lot. So it had cut up songs on one side because that was part of the game, but the other side had full songs on it. So I remember jamming out. But yeah, it reached platinum, I think, but only because of these tapes, not because of,
weird.
It got released on a CD or anything. The theme song reached triple platinum sales status.
That's a lot of dolls being sold. You could only get the tapes through those.
I know, that's what I was thinking too. It was said more than 3 million dolls were sold between 86 and 87.
Damn.
I did have the Roadster at one point. The Roadster had an FM radio in the trunk, the working FM radio. So you had the big Roadster, and then you could look and have a little antenna, and you could listen to music in it. I'm just saying.
Hey.
Classy. Jem is
ahead
classy.
of their time.
Yeah, dude, that seems awesome now, even though I was like, I want to get one just to see what it picks up. Okay, so I'm getting into odd facts now. One of the major plot points that you have to talk about with Jem and Jerrica is that they're not dating the same guy, but they're kind of dating the same guy. And this is one of those points where he doesn't know. So
that's so weird.
It begs the question, is it cheating? Because technically he thinks Jem is a different person. So like he knows that it's not Jerrica, but Jerrica is in there. So really, he's so in love with Jerrica that he loves her no matter what form she's in. So really, it could be an epic love story. And so
that is something that's like, yeah. I don't know.
Okay. And so they try to cover why Jerrica doesn't tell Rio, because that's the thing. Again, in the Jem Bible, it talks about Rio's background, and Rio comes from a very abusive background, and he does not like to be lied to. So they have him have these few kind of episodes where you're like, he might be a little bit psychotic, where he just gets really mad. He's the nicest guy. He's like, I will do anything for you. And he shows up all the time. And then all of a sudden he'll be like, I don't like liars and you should die, and you're like, oh my gosh, like that was so extreme.
But isn't he lying by dating 2 women? Like,
well,
is he technically dating them?
Or is he just in love with both of them?
He has feelings for Jem, and he will always run to her and come to her rescue. But he's not like, they're never seen in public like, this is Jem's boyfriend. But Jerrica knows. I mean, because she's
right.
Yeah.
The way that they cover it, because he never finds out, is the one time she goes to try to tell him, it shows a thing where Kimber, the younger sister, is dating 2 guys and she gets caught. And his response, like Jerrica's literally saying, there's something I've been wanting to tell you. And then this scuffle happens between these 2 dates, and Rio like flips out and he's like, I hate liars and you got what you deserved. You know what I mean? And so Jerrica's like, okay, yeah, I can't tell him because I've been lying to him this whole time and I'm going to lose him. And that's how they cover him never knowing that she's Jem and Jerrica.
So we cover spoiler alert. So does she ever completely go to one or the other?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't think so. I'll talk about the ending later, but
Okay.
I think it's just she's going to be both. Yeah, which is it's a really good. That's a very insightful, deep question, Aaron. I really like where you're going with this.
That's what I do. That's why you guys have me on here.
Deep thoughts with Aaron Butterworth.
That's another podcast, bro.
One of the fun facts is that Jem was actually going to be called Misty. The doll's name was Misty, and then they were just going to make the cartoon Misty, and they shortened it to M because I guess they didn't like Misty. Then they realized that they couldn't copyright the letter of the alphabet, so M, so they just changed it to Jem. So that's how Jem came about. The dolls actually all had different names, and so Christy was talking about in the Jem Bible, you might see the other names instead because they didn't get changed until later. So like Kimber's name was Morgan. They switched a lot. Roxy was Rue. Stormer was Roxy. Like it was all confusing when they wrote it. It was just one of those things where I can't imagine it being called Misty though. Do you guys ever do like, I don't know if I could talk about that, but I was going to say, we're talking about having kids soon and I have to go through names and I really associate names with people that I knew. And I'm like, oh no, I knew a Misty. I can't have a Misty, and so I just wonder if other people do that. Like, I don't know if I don't like the name Misty because it sounds like a stripper, or I don't know if I don't like it because it's like
you go through all the
need.
scenarios of like, does that rhyme with anything?
Oh,
that could be made fun of. Yeah,
Oh yeah,
Exactly.
I'm like, I definitely do that. And then I always have to put our last name on it because I can't do like Dustin was joking and saying, because our last name is I'm not going to call it right, an anagram or whatever, where you can spell it either way and it's the same. So he was like, what if we named her Hannah Anna Hannah and it'd be a full Hannah Anna Hannah? And I was like, what is wrong with you? Like,
for real.
But I always think it can't end with an because you can't have Anna Hannah, or I can't think of a name now, Aja Hannah. I don't know. I have a thing with that. Like it can't be So anyway.
Yeah,
so
no, I agree.
If other people do that with names, like I'm like, no, I knew a Misty once. You can't be Misty. It's not.
Yeah, and then there's names that are like you can't name, like Karen. You can't do it anymore.
Oh
no,
like, yeah, you're done there. Right. Yeah.
Corona.
No.
Yeah.
Corona.
Exactly. Come here to the Corona.
it has
like,
an
but
at the
stay
end,
6 feet away.
Mommy, nobody wants to play with me.
Right, because you're cursed. Okay, so I didn't want to get too far into episodes, but first I do want to say one thing is that even though Synergy had a lot of power, the writers actually said it still had to be kind of magic. Obviously, it wasn't science. So they were like, okay, she is a holographic thing, but she's going to have to be able to do things that a holograph wouldn't be able to do. But they still tried to keep parameters around it, which I thought was neat. So
that is good though, because if it does everything, then it takes some of the pizzazz away. But if it has parameters, it keeps it realistic-ish within the context of the show.
Exactly. No, you put that exactly right. And that's how she said it was. Yes, it is unbelievable. But what I think of that is when you think of time travel movies and where they can just almost do anything. I always thought that with
Mhm.
Heroes, where it's like they could really erase this whole timeline if they wanted to take it so far. And that's what they didn't want with Synergy. It's like we want her to be able to do stuff, but we also want there to be parameters around it. So one of the things I didn't say, which is really important, is Jerica wears earrings that activate Synergy. And the way she does that is by touching her earring, she'll say Showtime Synergy, and she'll ask her to do like a holograph or a diversion or whatever. And then the way she stops it is she said, shows over Synergy. And so she can do that from anywhere, even though the master computer is by the Starlight Mansion, so even that alone obviously is weird. But the parameters were she can't go through solid walls or objects. So if she's doing a holograph and a van pulls in front of it, the holograph is going to show on the side of the van and not go through the van. Stuff like that they kept in mind. They kept singing noises and voices really simple. So if they were like, hey, be Rio, and Rio would shout, Jem, come over here, it would just be a voice. She couldn't be like a full band and have all of these techie sounds. So it was very basic there. And then they even put she can project as many as 600 holographic changes per minute, which I thought was like a really weird spec. Of like, how did you get that tech? Like, I'm pretty sure there was 601 in that scene, so we really need to reel it in. Like,
we need to cut that.
Yeah, who's keeping track? So, without getting into all the episodes, because they are also different, the plot line is typically the same. Jem and the Misfits are going head to head. The Misfits are trying to undermine Jem, and then Jem wins. That's pretty much it. But the major episode that merges season 1 and season 2 is called the Glitter and Gold episode. So they did like this fundraiser and they brought in a bunch of extra characters that were one-offs, but they based a lot of these characters off of real people. So they had a character that was Michael Jackson, and he even does like a moonwalk at one point. They don't name him. They have one named Lena Lerner. Yeah.
I wonder who that could have been.
Kind of a private dancer. They had one after Bruce Springsteen. You could tell him, he comes out, he's got his guitar, Mick Jagger too. That Lena Lerner was the only one that was really obvious. Like,
I was getting ready to say, were they all like that? Like,
no, it'd be like Michael. I'm trying to think like.
Or like Nick Lager, or you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
right.
Like they just changed like the one letters.
Yeah.
I wonder if they had to put like a notice like these characters are all fictional, like no one is based on real characters.
Yeah,
like,
she didn't say anything about them getting like rights to it or whatever, but there was one too, her name was Luna Dark, and it was Madonna. She said it was like the Cone Madonna age, so the Glitter and Gold episode is like a bridge between, it says, the first and second season. Oh, and so in this one, the reason that they busted out this one, because like I said, Jem is a huge just advertisement, is they wanted a new line of dolls. So they wanted to do the glitter. So they bring out a new car for this one, which is the same exact car as the Roadster, but it's glitter and gold. So it's gold. Then they bring out Jem, and she has a new outfit on. So all the outfits from this episode are their new line of dolls. So really, sales are dropping. We need to glitter and gold it and re-up it. So glitter and gold is where the big punk rockers come in, because it's a charity event and they hire a bunch of punk rockers to come in and like trash the event. And so that's where the pirate shows up, because the animation wasn't done there. She's like, yep, I don't know why they're not wearing shoes. They just aren't wearing shoes. Yep. So the last thing I think I have. So in 2012, they did come out with a second set of dolls, and I looked them up, and they are bad ace. I love them so much. They sold at $135, and they sold out in 2 days at a Comic-Con convention.
Didn't they re-release on Netflix, like a new series on Netflix? Is that what this is for? Or
so this one, it's called Integrity Toys. It says a brand new series of collectible fashion dolls based on the TV series.
They do sometimes randomly do that. A company will get the rights to it, and they'll do like really detailed action figures, and they'll release them under some sort of like Masters of the Universe X or something. I don't know if they did that exactly, and they become collectibles because they're so good. So that may be what they did there.
I looked it up. The newest one, Jem and Holograms, didn't come out until 2015. So yeah, this must have just been a re-release. Sweet.
Yeah, they said in 2012 we're going to come with new dolls, and they're going to sell for this. And then again, 2 days they sold out. I don't think they've released any since. So another Jem merch that was released, and I actually have one that a friend bought me, was they did a comic. They updated her. One of the things they said was everybody looked really sleek. It was a one-off comic. I think it had 13 issues. And I just had a friend who saw it at the comic store and sent it to me. I hadn't actually opened it until we started talking about this episode.
Just lost all its value now that you opened it.
No, it's
Come
still in.
on.
It's like crispy.
Well, I don't think it was like a mint condition
Oh
one.
yeah, I've done it all with my oily fingers. Oh, so this comic book takes place 20 years later. And what I was reading was it has the original characters. There was only one new character released on this one named Blaze, and she was trans.
Okay.
Yeah, Blaze is the first new character to be introduced in Jem since the original series. She's transgender, and her coming out is a major plot point in issue 12. So
That's
it was really funny because when I was looking up the character list, I was like, who's Blaze? And then when I read it, I'm like, there was definitely not a trans character. And then I realized it's from because I was like, I really would have known that. And that also would have been super progressive. I was about to give like mad props.
And especially in the 80s. Woo!
Yeah, still very progressive.
That's awesome. I personally love it when they, include LGBTQ because we are a part of so many things. So even if it's just a side character, the fact that we exist in all these different things, it's just nice. It's nice when there's like an homage or a new character. It just makes me feel good.
You cannot tell me that there is no LGBTQ in glamour, glitter, fashion, and fame.
True.
I'm like, yeah, they were probably behind the scenes, but those outfits did not come from, like they're out doing synergy on the outfits. Like, girl, let me get this one. Yeah, you can't tell me that Jem is not part of that community. I will. Okay, the last thing that I'm going to talk about, 2015, they did come out with a movie of Jem.
It looked like a dumpster fire.
I need a moment of silence.
It got
that wasn't Jem,
4 out of 10.
It wasn't. I don't know why they didn't name it something different. I didn't watch it. I couldn't watch it.
I was really excited, and then I saw the trailer. Obviously, because we've been friends for so long, I was like, oh, I wonder if she's going to love this. I saw the trailer, and I was like, Ashley is going to go hunt them down with a dagger. Like,
I just decided to act like it never happened and just erase it from my life. I don't even think they can call it Jem. I don't know why they did that.
No.
The only notes I have on it is that they had Juliette Lewis in it, and Molly Ringwald, I guess, made an appearance. Again, I did not watch it. It was a box office bomb. It says it's considered one of the worst films ever made. But the voice actor and the singing actor did show up as side characters of like a hairdresser and a manager.
I mean, that's cool.
So they made a cameo, but I'm just like, no.
It's not worth it. Bring back like what I know or what I love. Doing something right is like having Peter Cullen come back to voice Optimus Prime in the movie. That was like, okay, you're taking what people know, you're putting it to something new. It's still fresh, but it's familiar. It's awesome. They didn't do any of that with that movie. I just needed to see the trailer to know that thing should be shot, buried like in the bottom of the ocean.
Mm-hmm. And nobody would look for it. It's not.
No,
nobody
they wouldn't. They'd be like,
you'd get away with that murder because nobody would care. They would probably give you an award. And again, I didn't watch it, so I can't really say. But can't I? Can't I?
There are things that you don't need to put yourself through.
So the last thing I'm gonna say is that in the end, just so you know how it ends, basically the bands all make a truce. So they tied it up in a pretty little bow. Due to low sales of the toy in 1987, they cut it out in 1988. And so once they canceled the dolls, Jem was canceled because, again, giant advertisement. Forget. Christy Marks, the one who I've been talking about the whole time because she was the major writer in it, has long expressed a desire to make a modern day revival of the animated series, but stated in 2004 that there are a great deal of complications concerning the rights or something like that. So she said, I'd like to see it happen. I don't want to go in a lot of detail, but the whole rights situation in Jem is very complicated. Believe me, if it was that simple, I'd do it. Yeah. I don't understand it, but know that Christy Marks has got your back, and if there is a chance for it, she's going to do it. So that maybe gives us something to look forward to. I would hope. Yeah, so it's in the cards. I would like to think it's not going to be a total shit show like the dumpster fire of 2015.
Oh God, man!
All right, that's Jem. It was a lot of information, but
it was a lot, but it was awesome though. It was great.
That was cool.
All of it. I like read maybe 75% of my notes. I cut so much out. We'll put some show notes of just the character listing, which is great. And yeah, some of the games for sale and all that stuff. So if you want to deep dive even further. All right. We're segueing.
Thundercats.
Oh,
yes, I am. That's my other name. So Thundercats was one of my personal favorite cartoons. I remember running and if I caught like the first of the episode, I was so happy. I didn't want to miss anything. It was just so cool, such a different concept. Oh, I just
these kids will never know what it's like to have to try to run in and
oh yeah,
make it to the beginning of an episode or a commercial break or
it.
There's a meme. I'm sure it's like these kids will never know, but it's like you never know it's on while you're jumping over the couch trying to make it back from the kitchen. You know.
Oh God, my mom would get so mad because we'd be coming home and she'd be like, "Okay, help me with the groceries," and I'm like, "Screw the groceries! I need to like sit down and watch Thundercats." She'd be like,
milk.
"Give me correct. Go grab the milk."
That's one thing that shocked me. I think about hey, Jem's coming back. I'm like, yeah, I know. I haven't left. I'm not going anywhere. No, you don't have to remind me. I'm waiting impatiently.
You're like, I'm here. So, like Jem, the Thundercats came out in 1985. They were created by Ted Wolfe or Tobin. He was an American writer, and then Leonard Starr was the head writer of it. The animation was done by also a Japanese studio called Pacific Animation Corporation, and then it was acquired by Walt Disney after a while. And then it was distributed by Telepictures, and they were bought by Warner Brothers. So I was like, that's kind of a weird dynamic where two huge studios have a little bit of a thing in there.
How long did it air for? I'm sure you're going to tell me, but I was just curious if you knew.
It had 4 seasons. And they also did a series finale, which a lot of cartoons never got.
That is what they mentioned about Jem, is that it was tied up in a bow, where a lot of them just, they don't. Which is nice.
A lot of cartoons were held by that standard of if they don't sell toys, it was canceled. There's many cartoons that I was like, what happened? Only to find out later that it was canceled due to either low toy sales or just low ratings overall. But if you've never seen Thundercats, what it was about is the Thundercats were a feline race, and their home planet, Thundera, was dying, and they had to flee and find a new home. So on the journey, their ship is attacked because these mutants want the sword that the Thundercats have. It's the source of their power. So they're fighting, and they damage the ship. But the Sword of Omens defeats the mutants before they can kill the Thundercats. But because the ship is damaged on their way to the planet they wanted to reach, they can't get there. And so they have to go to a place called Third Earth. So they put all the Thundercats in stasis. And the oldest one, Jaga, is like, no, I'll pilot it to this place. It's going to take forever. He dies. This is kind of dark for like a kid's show. But Jaga dies on its way to this Earth. And all the pods are basically okay, except for the main character, Lion-O. He is a child when he enters this pod, but due to an error, he ages a little bit of a slower rate. So when they arrived at this planet, Lion-O is now from 12, now an adult. So that's a really significant plot point if you miss the beginning, that like he has the mind of a child, but he's in a body of a man.
One thing I noticed is that they all were naked when they were on the ship.
Yes, that is one thing. They were pretty much butt naked. Obviously, they didn't have genitalia or whatever.
Right.
I mean,
they do answer the question. They say something about the planet we're going. We will need these garbs to protect us. But I'm like, why are they all naked?
Yeah, it was like
they're cats.
Then one thing I thought was funny too was when they landed and Lionel woke up and they're like, he's grown up. Chitara's like, and handsome too. And I'm like,
I know. I'm like, is this your family? Star's like, hey, youngin, it's doing. So, no kidding, they're still called predators. Chitara's on How to Catch a Predator. So the group of heroes arrive on this planet called Third Earth, which actually is our Earth. Them calling it Third Earth isn't necessarily what you think, that it's the third from our sun. It's actually the age. So it's the third age, meaning that a lot of the humans are kind of gone. There's still humans in the show, but our technical ages, everything, we're all pretty much dead and gone. And the people who are left are like Amazon warriors. It's kind of gone back to that, you know, you advance so far and then you kill each other off and you're left with just a post-apocalyptic sort of thing.
And they all spoke English too, is what's crazy.
Yeah, they did, which is great. They had a translator.
Yeah, that's what I was talking.
Yeah, so Google Translate did survive, and that's how they all communicated.
Right.
So when they arrive on this planet, they piss off one of the only sentient humans, Mum Ra, who's like this old mummy who worships these ancient spirits of evil. And he's basically like the old man, like, get off my lawn, sort of thing. And so he's like,
get off my earth.
Get off my earth.
Get off my earth. So he's this old, decrepit mummy, just bandages and this red cloak. And then when he summons these ancient spirits, he morphs into this body-built blue sorcerer god who can fly, and just is constantly battling the Thundercats. Either he's trying to get the sort of omens, or he's trying to kill him, or he's trying to like just do something. Yeah.
They just pissed him off by landing?
Kind of. He saw that they had the Sword of Omens, and he wants that because it's powerful.
Power.
And yeah,
The
so
old
it's
power
always
chestnut.
And it's like the old cartoons where the villain is a badass, but he's always got like bumbling minions
the
and they're
stupid henchmen, all of them.
It's like they have a chance to beat them every single time, but one of the henchmen messes it up, and it's like, oh, slime.
Cracks me up.
Yeah.
Like, why can't you find better people? I don't understand.
But
yes,
I guess
like
on Third Earth, it's probably slim pickings. So I guess
I don't know. Those people are warriors that lasted in this apocalyptic thing. I feel like they're, but maybe it's like you don't want other people that are smarter than you, because then they're gonna take. You know what I mean? You do pick the stupid. It's like
they
that. Like we talked about with Jem Battle of the Bands.
Recruiters.
You pick the lesser people so you can be on top. You know what I mean? You don't want to pick another person that's your equal, because then you're like, then you're the dumb
like
henchman.
Diana from LinkedIn is like, hey, Mom Ra, I've got these mutants here. How smart are they? They're pretty smart. No, I don't want them. We have some really dumb ones. They have a GPA of like 0.2. Yes, I'll take those, please.
Send them over.
Yeah. So the mutants that fired on their spaceship as they were traveling ended up coming to this earth, and Mum Ra creates like an alliance with them, and they're always trying to like do stuff. Now, one of the fun facts about this that you mentioned is that the PSAs, they always had do better, or they always had to have some sort of learning mechanism for kids. They even came out with a study guide that kids could ask their teacher for it, take it home, and they would write stuff down, and then they would try to put it in the lesson plan. That is some smart marketing. If it's a part of your study, like, what did Lionel learn yesterday, kids? Not to kill.
Well, I noticed they put messages in there. Like one of them, for example, I saw was like, rules are only rules when people follow them. Otherwise, rules are just words. But it's like, throw it in there, It's like,
I mean, they would put them in everything that I saw as a kid. Like I remember G.I. Joe was a huge one that they did it with.
Do you remember, this is kind of random, but in the beginning when the Simpsons actually had like moral stuff in there, so Homer would have like son, we don't, and then later it's like they were just like, drop the morals, we're past it. I do remember watching the old ones, and I was like, Homer's giving a Danny Tanner moment.
Yes, I do remember that.
How messed up were the kids from the 70s and 60s that they were like, look, we got to get them when they're young, because Billy is pushing old ladies into traffic. We got to make sure he knows not to do that. And so they're like, we'll put it in cartoons. And now Billy doesn't do it.
Yeah. Like, why do they need to put it in the cartoon?
Yeah. So like what you were saying about the movie for Jem, they actually were going to do a movie for Thundercats. But when Transformers flopped, and then there was another one that flopped. Oh, GoBots and My Little Pony, they both bombed like hard. And so any cartoon movie that they were going to do around that time, they were like, scratch it. And what they did is they chopped up the movie into certain parts, and they would create season 2 or season whatever out of that movie. So that's why you see sometimes to be continued or whatever, and it just kind of starts, So that's what they did. Because I was like, I never saw a movie of the Thundercats. And then when I dove deeper into it, I was like, that's what they did.
It all makes sense now.
But if you watch all of it, some of it doesn't make sense because they'll put the movie in before or after, where they were trying to fill up slots.
Right, like their timeline, they're like, wait a minute, they're not.
Yeah, and so there was a bit of continuing error with, I think, season 2, like going into season 2, and they were like, And
it's stuff that we question now, but I don't know if as kids we were.
No, as
because
kids,
also most cartoons weren't to be continued.
It was single episode arcs.
There you go. Thank you. Where they tie it up, and then the next episode can be completely different. And when you get it to be continued, you're like, oh, okay. Yeah, but it does keep you coming back.
I personally liked it because I liked those storylines that happened all season, where it was like, okay, the episodes are the filler, but as you get deeper in it, you're like, oh, this is really cool. It just made for a better story for me. It was more impactful, and I was deeper invested. But I guess
did you see? And I think because of the to be continued, is this where we started seeing the like last time on Jem, this is what happened? Because if you think about it, started halfway through, you're like, what last time we were here? So you have to do the like last time on Jem, the Starlight Mansion burned down. So you get caught up without being like, what's happening?
I think that would help too, because if you were watching this on Saturday morning or during the week and you only got one episode, and sometimes you wouldn't even get the next episode, you get like 3 down or from season 1 or 8 or whatever, that previous recap was very helpful.
You needed that filler for sure. I'm sure I still would have watched it, but
well, you had no choice. I mean,
I loved this cartoon because the characters were all cool, like Panthro with his nunchucks that were in the shape of claws, Chitara who could run super fast with her bow. But the Sword of Omens was really cool because Lionel would grab it. It looked like a dagger that he would put in his hilt, and he would say thunder, and it would grow in size. And then he would be like, thunder, thunder, Thundercats, ho. And if he said that, this red image of a cat, almost like a panther face, would be projected up in the sky. And that's how he would summon his friends come help. And all the characters were so cool. I thought the sword was awesome, all the mythology around it. But one of the interesting facts was it wasn't the most powerful sword in the universe. Mum-Ra at one point got the Lady of the Lake, the keeper of Excalibur, like he basically gets Excalibur in a disguise, and the 2 swords ended up fighting in the episode. And around the hilt, there's the eye of Thundera, which is where the red holographic projection comes from. So Excalibur pierces that, and the sword basically dies. And you're like, yeah, and it was such an iconic moment for me. I was like, no, I was like, that can't die. It's the highest sword, whatever. But Excalibur was so powerful that Merlin ended up wielding it and restoring the Sword of Omens back to its former glory.
Ooh,
see, I don't remember that.
What a tough moment, though. You're like, we can't lose. That's not how it works.
Man, they had some crazy stuff, but I loved how they incorporated like different bits of mythology from ages ago. And then speaking of the mythology part, so these actually could be from Japanese folklore, the Thundercats themselves, because there's a creature known as a Thunder Imp or Thundercat, quotes. And what they were is the descriptions categorized them as, and I may be butchering this, but I think Raiju, like Raiju, and that meaning thunder animal. So I thought that was really interesting because I didn't know that that's where they possibly had come from. And they can take the form of like different animals, like wolves or weasels, cats, obviously.
Thunder Weasel.
Thunder
Yeah.
Weasel.
Yeah, I don't know how that would have gone over, but it looks cool in my head.
I keep thinking again of Roger Rabbit when I think of weasels now.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, man.
I want to take it back to the characters real quick. What about my man Snarf, dude? Why do they treat him so damn bad, man? You know
I mean, so actually, funny, Snarf was the species. It wasn't his name.
Snarf.
He would always go like Snarf, Snarf. He looked like a lizard crossed with a cat.
Yeah.
He had this like weird tail.
And then he always was like, well, just blame it on old Snarf.
Yeah. That's a really good voice.
And Snarf's a good guy?
Yeah, he was like like their pet or something, maybe.
Yeah,
or whatever.
The sidekick. Do you remember Orko from He-Man? How he was always the sidekick that never did anything right? That's Snarf.
So basically, what you were saying with the bad guys and the henchmen, the good guys also have
I wouldn't
say
say
dumb one,
like comedic sort of.
Yeah, he was kind of the comedic sidekick. Yeah, but
yeah.
Still, they treat him. They're like, quiet down, Snarf, and he's like, I don't even say anything. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He's really cute. Look at this picture of him. Like he looks little. Look, he's
no, he was cute.
Don't be mean to Snarf.
His name was actually Osbert.
I did not know that. Huh.
Wait, what's his name?
Osbert. Osbert.
But every time he finishes a sentence, it's like snarf.
Snarf, snarf.
Yeah.
Star.
Yeah.
Sorry,
it
this
was
really
kinda
funny picture
crazy.
came up of him getting a handful of the boob here. Can you see that?
Oh.
Looks
He's
like
got
he's getting
like
a
a-
handful of something else.
Oh wait,
on there.
that's Lino. That's Lino as a kid.
Oh,
It looks
well.
like he was.
Well, somebody else.
So-
Yeah, clearly that's why they treated him so bad. They're
I
like,
was
we know
getting ready to
what.
say, it all makes sense now.
Oh, full circle. Some of the fun facts about this. They had a psychologist read every script to make sure that all the lessons were in place. So the PSAs, they were done with a psychiatrist behind it to make sure that they were enforced and it was good.
And what year was
Um,
this? Because I feel like they didn't even start getting into
85.
child psychology until like
85. They wanted
pretty
it such
advanced.
a. Mm-hmm. I thought so
Yeah.
too. I was like, damn. It was so successful that they actually had a Thundercats live on stage tour.
Oh,
Let me
my
tell
gosh.
you, it is like the stuff out of nightmares. Like if you took little like Billy to there, he wouldn't sleep for a year. Like Chitara looked like she was gonna be like, I'm gonna dance and sing and eat you as you sleep. Like
Wait, hold
Like-
on. When you say
And
live,
handsome too.
yeah, like
Billy's
look it
handsome.
up. Look it up. They just look weird. Chitara, she looks angry, like she ain't been fed in 5 days or something.
Wait, okay, so we're saying live show, Thundercats live show.
Yeah, say like stage production or something, and it should pop up because I had a few. Like some of the characters look okay, but the weird thing was, so Thundercats was
this?
posted. Yes. Oh dear
Oh,
God, look at
wow.
that. That's
I'm
like
scared.
demons.
It looks like Lou Ferrigno, and it's not real muscles, right? It's like little muscles.
I don't think so. I mean,
Oh,
maybe.
that's hilarious.
Like
no,
I don't know.
No way. Wow.
He takes it off and he's like skinny mini.
Oh,
So, but
this
the
is
host of the
scary.
live shows, they would incorporate other cartoons. So Gumby, like Gumby and like the pony thing, I guess, they would host the show and somehow they connected all the universes. So this was meta before it was even, they had a multiverse of like cartoons on stage.
Yeah, like when I pulled it up, that's why I couldn't figure out if I had the right thing or not. Because there's a picture of Gumby and Pokey, and then in the
Yep.
background there's like I think it's one of the other ones we had talked about. There's a Karate Cat. Remember the other cartoons we were talking about? And
Oh.
there's the Hop
Mhm.
Frog that I do remember.
Yes, kind of.
It was clever. It was a pun, and Aaron used it. I said,
Yes.
"What is that? A hop frog?" And you were like, "Oh, it's this." And I'm like, "Oh my god, it makes so much sense." Wow, that must look good on a resume. You're like,
Dude, like,
Right.
yeah, if you produce that,
I'm saying the person who's in it still riding that Thundercat wave, but I did
Dude.
Thundercats live. Do you know who I am? Like trying to get in the
exactly. They're like,
club,
oh, you got the job. Here you go.
Yeah.
Don't you know who I am?
I don't know. I feel like they all had to start doing strip teases or something for 25 cents. They're like, I was in Thundercats. Show me your bow.
Oh my god.
Tell me I'm handsome, Chitara.
Yeah. Oh, like, I'm sorry. Like, if you stop hearing from me, it's the portal to hell that opened up. So Jessica Alba was a huge fan. Like she absolutely loved it, which I thought was interesting. If you remember Grandpa Huxtable from The Cosby Show, he actually voiced Panthro. I loved Panthro. Like I thought his
Yeah,
voice
look him
was
up.
so cool and
Yeah, all the heroes did have like just that deep voice. They're like,
yeah.
taste my blade. Like, every time they did
I-
something cool.
So I always loved Panther though, because I felt like if there was ever a battle, Panther would always win. He was definitely probably one of my favorites. So what else? They had a comic series that they've done. There was one that they crossed over with He-Man. That's been pretty popular. The one thing I will say about some of these shows that I did not like, and it made more sense when I did more research. Do you ever come across those characters who were like, why is this character there? Like, what is he or she?
All
The
the time.
writers would actually have to write in new toys. So they would come with like these crazy ideas and be
Oh,
like,
yeah.
okay, we got Stick Figure Man. Like, what can we do with that? And we're like, I guess we can make him Lionel's friend from when they were in high school or something. I don't know.
I'm telling you, it's opened up my world. I don't know why I wouldn't have thought that the world of cartoons was that corrupt.
Oh God.
I
yeah.
don't know. Like I just thought we were being entertained. I didn't realize we were being freaking.
Well,
Oh, no, it was
I
designed
got
as
some
a
more
voice.
on that when I do Scooby Doo.
Like I
I
feel like
bet
product
you do.
placement now is so obvious, so I didn't really notice it. I'll be honest, I'm like super naive, I guess, until Dustin started pointing it out, and he would go product placement, and I was like, "What?" And he's like, why are they drinking their Pepsi can that way? Why is it
Yeah,
sitting, and it's
exactly.
like really obvious. And now I'm like, oh my God.
Little
Mhm.
different.
Yeah.
Mhm.
He's like, we never sell out. Newprin. Yeah. I guess it's just less obvious then because the characters were the product and I didn't even.
Yeah, because you wanted to be around them. Like if I loved Panthro so much, I don't know if my mom got me any Thundercat toys. I think I had the sword, which was cool, and it actually extended.
Yeah,
It was
I remember
awesome.
Did we see
Mhm.
any Thundercats toys at that museum we went to, Aaron? I feel like that was not, and there was everything.
There probably was. You just probably weren't looking for them because they are popular.
Yeah, I think there were.
Forget what they sell
Were
for.
there?
Mhm.
What else? So they created a game, but it was on like the CPC, the Atari ST, Commodore 64. So obviously nobody played it.
Right.
The other funny thing was Lion O was supposed to be called Lion L, but it was too close to Lionel. And and they were like,
first thought, Lionel.
Yes, and so they didn't want it to be confused like Lionel Richie or any of these other things. So they,
I'm like,
so
I
they
don't know why
changed it to
not.
Lion
Lionel
O.
Richie's all made
I don't know.
Professor,
I'm like, he's a
come
Thundercat
quick.
in itself. Yeah. There is actually a movie that is being produced as we speak. There's a script that's written, but I want to say there's a director that's attached, but they've been trying to do this for years.
Yeah, I remember it's probably been 4 or 5 years that I remember Matthew McConaughey was going to be
I was going to ask,
like,
was Ryan Reynolds attached to this at all? For some reason, I have a blip of Ryan Reynolds, but I don't know if I'm making that up.
This has been
wishful thinking.
Ongoing. Yeah, oh God, man, Ryan Reynolds could play anything, and I'd watch it.
Oh, the Adam Project was really good. Yeah.
Oh, it was. But this has been in a movie pit for like ages. Like somebody will go in, take it out, and they'll be like, "I'm going to make a movie," and then it never gets made. This has had a long history of failures for getting it up and running. So they actually did a reboot of this in 2011. So I watched all of it. It was so good. It was very well done. It was respectful of the original take on it, but it updated it in many ways. The original Lionel was brought on as like the new Lionel's dad. So he voiced him. They took their time and explored the characters and didn't show everybody at once. It was cool. And it got canceled real quick. It only had 1 season. And due to failing toy sales, that's what killed it. They were supposed to have 52 episodes and it only got to 26. I was so heartbroken because it was so good.
Did you get a finale or did it just end?
No, this is one of the ones that it's supposed to go into like season 2 with a cliffhanger. And it never did.
That's the worst. I'm like, you haven't told me what happened.
It was awful. And then they tried rebooting it again, but this time instead of it being like quality animation, this stuff was like somebody was like on acid and cocaine, and they just put a whole bunch of shit together and was like, let's make Thundercats weird. And that's what they did. They turned it into like this Turd Express that just looked like a more
Turd Express.
like this very cartoony sort of art style. I'm trying to think, not Steven Universe, but like almost that sort of weird, just everything doesn't make sense. It was a very fast-paced show, and I only saw the trailers for it, and it looked awful. And it was supposed to be like more of a funny take on a serious cartoon, and it bombed. Everybody hated it, and they quickly canceled it. And I think it's now down in the bottom of the ocean. But the most crazy thing that I could find that I know is going to perk Ashley's interest is one of the writers was murdered in 2010. So his name was
We can do this on one of our true crime episodes.
I was like, I know she's going to be like, okay, let's dive deep into this. So his name was Stephen Perry, and he went missing. His van was found abandoned at a Tampa hotel, and soon after, they found his severed arm nearby. Authorities later revealed that he was a victim of a homicide and arrested his roommates in connection with his death. And so, although they were charged with the crime, the rest of his remains were never found. And I don't know if they got off or whatever, but can you imagine they just found his arm? Like, immediately what comes to mind is that Mad TV skit where he's like, I got your arm, bear.
Yeah, or like, I think of Pennywise when he's like waving the
when he's waving the arm, and I'm just like,
what came to mind was Panthro making a nunchuck out of it, but
oh God. He's like, these are handy.
But I don't want to talk about the dead like that. But
no, I mean, I don't either. I like I apologize to him and anybody I would offend by that.
Oh yeah, we're definitely gonna have to deep dive into that. That is a weird.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? And so apparently he was going in for like cancer or something, and they picked him up up out of the hospital and they just never found him. So
that's so weird. I wonder if Morbid's done one on it. We're gonna have to look. So I do want to backtrack a little bit besides this wonderful nugget that you've just dropped on us that I'm totally intrigued by. If the rights are so hard to get, like we're talking about, how do people like the other person who mess it up so bad get the rights? Do you know what I mean? Like, how did they get permission?
Yeah.
How do they not have to pitch it first and say, hey, this is my idea, and say, no, you are worthy of this, because it's really hard to get these rights? Because now the idea that they could get a remake again is going to be, it feels like, no, we tried Thundercats and it didn't work, you know? And I'm just like, but that person sucked. And I don't understand why they would treat it so not precious. Like, did somebody like lose it in a poker game and they're like, all right,
I
right,
don't know.
Thundercats, and they're like, suckers. And then
well, because that first reboot didn't do as well as they wanted to, they killed it. But I do know that with some of the rights to things, if the parent company is bought and something's going on with it with another distributor, I'll give you Star Trek for an example. So when Viacom was split up, like certain things at Paramount could only do movies and certain could only do like TV shows. And there was this weird thing where they couldn't exist together. I may be butchering that, but the idea is if a parent company owns it and one is bought off, but the rights are with another group, who knows if they were given a time limitation or something. So then it's, well, we own this, but we've given the rights to them. So how do we talk?
But it's like permission to butcher. This seems very careless to me with these precious cartoons that we have.
I agree.
To love. I am taking a stand and I have signed my petition. If you feel this passionate about it, just
but that's my thing on Thundercats. I didn't want to go too crazy, so I was like, I don't know. Like,
no, great job. Yeah, no,
way more streamlined than mine.
I mean, it's just crazy how in depth you can get when you really, look into this
really
stuff.
Can.
Yeah, and then if I don't know, I'm sure you guys had the same problem I do, but you're researching one thing and then you're like, then you see the murder thing and you go down there and you're like,
oh dude,
I
stopped myself.
I kind of have one in mind too that I really...
if mine had like a murder, I would not have gotten very far. That'd be a whole different episode.
Yeah, I was like, I'm so happy Ashley didn't get this because it would be like the Stephen Perry show.
Like how he got murdered. I'm like, let me just sneak this in and then it would be a whole
change of plans, y'all.
On a good segue, let's move into Scooby-Doo.
Sweet. All right. Scooby-Doo.
I want to sing the Scooby-Dooby-Doo, where are you? We've got some work to do now. That's the only part I know. Is that it? Yeah.
Yeah, great. So you guys were in the 80s, and we are an 80s and 90s podcast, but I'm going to take you guys back to 1960s for a little while.
Hey.
So, no doubt. So it's kind of crazy because some of the stuff you guys were talking about ties into what I'm going to talk about. So the CBS morning lineup was Space Ghost, Fantastic Four, Thundar the Barbarian, and Super Friends. And a lot of parent groups were calling these cartoons out because a lot of these cartoons were sponsored and it was a lot of advertisements about the products that these cartoons were sponsored by, and they were calling for less violent cartoons. When I first heard that, I kind of scoffed at them like, violence. But the deeper I looked into it, they had the assassination of Martin Luther King, JFK, the Vietnam War was going on. So when I kind of thought about what was going on in the real world, I realized that there was a lot going on and parents wanted better for their kids. And then also a lot of these cartoons back then were sponsored by Post and Kellogg's. And so the whole half an hour would be just pretty much propaganda for like cereal and Flintstones vitamins and stuff like that. And some of the advertisements I actually found were like the Flintstones were actually in a cigarette ad for Winston cigarettes.
No,
I promise we'll put it in the show notes. And
I know I was gonna say, is it on YouTube?
It is. So it shows Barney and Fred. The two wives were out in the yard working, and Barney and Fred are like, man, that looks like hard work. And it's like, let's go around back. So they go around back and they're smoking cigarettes back there. And he's like, man, this tastes good. And like the catch line was like, Winston tastes good like a cigarette should.
What?
No joke.
Oh my God.
I couldn't believe it. I'm like, so when I first saw these parent groups, the main one was the ACT for Children's Television. It was called ACT, Americans for Children's Television. And they were really pushing for these because it was just propaganda on these products. So they did end up actually getting it passed to where these companies couldn't advertise and do that for a while until about 1984 when Ronald Reagan canceled the act that they had passed, and that's probably when all of the shows that we watched,
all the shows that we watched, where I'm just finding out we're just giant commercials for
so
toys.
it's funny that you guys talked about it, because it did talk about Ronald Reagan canceling this act that the FCC had passed about advertising towards children and stuff like that.
So then it was in for like effect for how long, like 20 years, or I guess not that long.
Yeah, between like the 70s and 84. So yeah, like 13, 14 years.
Yeah,
a while.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of the networks, they were looking for more wholesome TV. So this is when Sesame Street came out, Mr. Rogers came out, and Hanna-Barbera was looking for a TV show that would be more wholesome TV, a cartoon, and appeal to children and adults. So they hired Joe Ruby and Ken Spears. They both worked for Hanna-Barbera, and they came up with an idea about 5 teens and a bongo playing dog who were in a band called the Mysteries 5. So this band traveled the country playing gigs and solving supernatural mysteries along the way. The only problem was the original idea of this show was more serious and kind of scary. There really wasn't much humor in it. So CBS turned it down. They said it's too scary. So they had to go back to the drawing book. So the original characters, they had Jeff, Mike, Kelly, Linda, and Linda's brother named WW. It didn't say what
WW.
Yep, Dub. So the original Scooby-Doo was actually going to be named Too Much, like TOO much, because back in the early 60s, that's just too much was a popular phrase. I looked it up. There's songs written titled that and everything. It was just a popular saying.
Should we bring it back? Is it something we could use?
Too much? No, that's too much.
That's just too much. That's just too much. No doubt. So the original Too Much, I'm just going to call him Scooby from now on. He was more of like a scrappy dude. He was brave, wanting to fight, and he wasn't scared of anything. So he was more of a Scrappy Doo based character than the Scooby Doo.
I'm glad they changed that. I know.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I didn't like
I
Scrappy
said,
as much.
CBS, they turned this down. They said it was too scary, too serious. That's not what they were looking for. So they went back to the drawing board and they revamped the characters, the premise. So the new premise, still the same thing. It was a group of teenagers and their lovable mutt that drive around in the mystery machine solving paranormal activities.
I wonder how they like changed it up though from the other premise to so the other one they were in a band and solving mysteries, or
so they were going around
like,
playing gigs like wherever the gigs were at. Yeah, they were solving.
It just happened to be like, there's paranormal things. We're in the city, and
so in the newer ones they would be visiting amusement park, and then the villain happened to be at the amusement park. That's just kind of how they did. They never really.
You've seen TV shows like that. I'm like, these people have the worst luck. Like
seriously,
everywhere you just
they're like not even surprised anymore. They're like, fine, can we finish our ride first?
Yeah,
like,
just came to ride a roller coaster and now I have to solve a mystery.
Like CSI Scooby Doo edition.
Yeah, like look, you guys solve your own damn mystery. I'm just here to ride a roller coaster.
Here, let me make it easy for you. Pull off his head, and there's gonna be a dude underneath it.
And so speaking of that, the episodes always ended in let's see who you really are, and it would show who it was, and there was always some variation. I would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for you meddling kids.
For your pesky kids.
And your dog, And so that reminded me of the Wayne's World, the Scooby-Doo ending.
Yes.
It's like it's Old Man Jenkins from the
There's Rob Lowe, like he ends up being the old man. He's like, I don't know how to got away with it too.
I rewatched it, and then Garth goes, "Road Run Raggy," like.
Classic.
I laughed so hard.
Dustin is actually, and this is a little off, but Dustin's watching a show right now. I gotta think of what it's called. But I've caught a few episodes and I've been like, this is just Scooby-Doo, right? I watched one and it was this ghost came in and I said, there's a realtor that's trying to sell her apartment. So they're trying to figure out what the ghost thing. And later he was like, it was the realtor. And I was like,
it was the realtor.
Like,
and that's the premise of the story. It was always a villain that had a problem.
Wanted
and
something, right?
Yeah, they used holograms and So in the revamp, the writers turned Too Much, aka Scooby, into a more goofy dog because they wanted a Great Dane, but they didn't want him to be confused with Marmaduke, which was a popular comic back then.
Oh yeah.
And they also had another design, but they didn't want him to be confused with Hot Dog from the Archie show. There was a show, I guess he was a sheepdog or something. I didn't really know. I tried to look up pictures of it. I really couldn't find him.
I remember Hot Dog.
So to differentiate him from Marmaduke, they wanted to kind of make him a Great Dane, but like not a purebred Great Dane. So they gave him the double chin, the slope back, and the overly kind of bow-legged. And then, of course, when he talks, he's a talking dog, but he has the R's like we just did. There's actually a name for it. It's called rhodic replacement or rhodification is what it's called whenever you put a syllable.
Well, is it the W's that turn into the R's, or he does it Ruby? No, because he does it with everything.
He does everything.
Yeah,
Starts with an R. So yeah, it's called syllable rhodic replacement. His original name is actually Scoobert Doo, is Scooby-Doo's real name. And he is a triplet. He has a whole tree of siblings that we may talk about.
Long.
Yeah.
Like he had a long list of
all the different characters. I'm like, I don't remember all these, but then when you look at pictures, oh, I remember that. So,
I always just remember y'all talking about the country one, and I do remember that one. But the other ones I don't. I mean, besides, not the siblings. Yeah.
So there's rumors on how he got the name Scooby-Doo. The writers say they got it from one of them joking about Frank Sinatra going doobie doobie doo or something. And
okay.
And
I can see that.
There was a band called Randy and the Rainbows, and they sound a lot like a Beach Boy, like a boy band back then. They say that they stole the name from them. They had a song named Denise where one of the singers was in the background is singing Scooby-Doo, Scooby-Doo, like over and over. It's kind of scatting. It's a big controversy in the Scooby-Doo world. I didn't see anything like that. So there was also a theory where Barney Rubble, going back to Barney Rubble, the chain smoker, he would scat sometimes in this cartoon. He would be like Razzmatazz and Scooby Dooby Doo and Ricky Dicky and boom 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 whatever. But
wait,
and so
Barney,
like he would like scat.
Got to rewatch them.
Well, I was gonna say, don't Google Barney Rubble Razzmatazz. It comes up with a band with a not so friendly name that came out with a song called Butt Slut. So don't.
Well, of course I'm gonna Google it now that you told me not to. Clearly, you do not know my nature.
Not the Barney Rubble we want.
It's one of the things where I'm telling you not to do it, but I know you're gonna do it.
Right. Don't hit the red button.
Yeah. So that's Scooby. That's what they changed with Scooby for the new show. The other characters, they were all based on a show called The Many Lives of Dobie Gillis. It was a black and white sitcom, kind of before its time. It was set in the high school years, and it really inspired shows like Happy Days and the high school kind of shows. It even had some ties to Saved by the Bell.
Really?
Jeff and Mike were combined to become Fred Jones. Fred Jones was named after the CBS executive, Fred Silverman, which he had a lot of other shows that he was responsible for.
Am I crazy, or did he always have an ascot on?
Yeah, he did. Yep,
did he have he always had the tied little neckerchief?
Yeah.
Kind of a fashion choice.
Fred was the character. He was kind of the leader of the group, and he was always wanting to set traps, and his way of finding the ghost was always way too complex, and his traps usually kind of hindered the investigation more than it did help.
Backfire.
So Fred Jones was voiced by Frank Welker. Frank actually auditioned for Shaggy, but ended up getting the role of Fred Jones, and he was also the role of Scooby-Doo. This dude was a legend in the cartoon world. He was the voice of Curious George, many of the characters on Animaniacs, Megatron, and Soundwave, Garfield. He's been on Futurama, Powerpuff Girls. He was Astro from the Jetsons, Abu from Aladdin. He was both Tom and Jerry. Yeah. He was Santa's little helper on The Simpsons.
Dude, legend.
Snowball. I know.
These are all animals that don't talk, though. How do you I'm like, wait a minute.
Hey, he was Sharptooth from Land Before Time. And he was even the gopher from Caddyshack.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay,
he was
I do love that freaking gopher, though. He goes,
he was the voice of Inspector Gadget and Dr. Claw.
Wow.
And Cujo the dog. Yep.
Damn, he had range.
I'm telling you.
It's like they were like, we need an animal. Call
and
in.
And also, you were talking about Jem having all different voices for every character. Scooby-Doo was not like that. A lot of the main voice actors played a lot of the side characters on Scooby-Doo also.
That makes sense.
And his main catchphrase was, looks like we've got another mystery on our hands. So Kelly from Mysteries 5 actually became Daphne Blake. She was played by Steffiana Christopherson. She didn't really do too much. She was in MASH, some Sanford and Son.
So like actor, not so she just
as an actress. Yeah, as an actress. Yep.
Got it. Actress. Yeah.
And so the character Linda became Velma Dinkley. Velma was voiced by Nicole Jaffe, I think that's how you say it. And she had some voice roles in Captain Caveman and a few other side jobs. One of her famous quotes was "Jinkies." That was when she discovered
Jinkies.
something.
I love that one.
Yeah, the definition of jinkies, I didn't know was actually a real word, but to express surprise or amazement. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Jinkies.
That is.
And so there was a constant theme in Scooby-Doo where Velma always tripped and lost her glasses. It was just a thing. You know, she would fall a trip and she's like, my glasses, I can't see without them. That was actually a blooper because she was reading her lines one day and she knocked her glasses off or dropped them and she said it in the line and they thought it was just hilarious. So they kept it in there and it just became a theme.
A running
over,
joke.
That's cool.
Yeah, one of the
Yeah.
trademark gags.
Your research is way more entertaining. I'm
So-
like, I'm not gonna do them anymore. I'm just gonna let you do them. These
So
are
the
fun
brother
facts.
WW, he became Shaggy, which Shaggy's real name is Norville Rogers, and he was no longer Linda's brother. He was voiced by Casey Kasem, which we all know from
Yes, top
America's
40.
Top 40s.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is he actually auditioned for the role of Fred.
I want to put those side by side because Casey Kasem has such a distinct voice and
Can
cadence
you
that I'm
imagine
like,
them
really?
different, you
I
know?
know.
Not now.
So he was Mr. Magoo. He did some Transformer roles. They show him in Alf, some Tiny Toons, but we all know him from mainly America's Top 40.
Yeah.
And my murder is actually when Casey Kasem died. So he died a few years back in 2018. And
Okay.
Casey
So-
Kasem?
yeah, Casey Kasem. Yeah. Actually, he died in
Wow,
2014. I'm sorry, 2014. But in
I thought it was a lot
2018
longer.
No. So in 2018, the investigation was reopened over his death because both sides, his wife is accusing the kids of killing him, and the kids are accusing the wife of killing him. Like they're both battling. He's worth
What?
$80 million, and they're both kind of fighting over it. And that's maybe something we can go into deeper down the road. But
Oh, hell yes.
yeah, it's just kind
Yeah.
of crazy. They're both accusing each other of murdering
cartoon
him for the
murders.
money, you know? So I
Well,
thought
here's
that was,
the thing too. How did he die? How was he murdered?
it just says a wrongful death, an open investigation.
old was
of the
he?
death. He was, you would have
Oh,
to
I'm
ask me
on.
that.
I know.
Yeah,
If you-
absolutely.
Aaron's
Yeah.
gonna get into it again. Facts are optional.
Yeah, facts are
Can't wait.
optional here, okay? Yeah, that's something we can
82.
kind of,
He was 82.
He died at St. Anthony's Hospital in Gig Harbor, Washington at 82. Cause of death was reported as sepsis caused by an ulcerated bed sore.
Ooh, sepsis.
So we
Gross.
got-
Yep.
Yeah, but he was up there. I guess I didn't realize he was that old when he died.
Yeah.
yeah, the last time I saw him, you could tell he was still dyeing the hair, you know, like he,
Oh
he
yeah,
still
like
looked pretty
I
rough.
feel like the old, like you were talking about earlier,
Yeah.
the Rat Pack when they get older and you're like, it's the real guy,
Yeah.
it's not."
But he was on, remember he was at the Max on Saved by the Bell. Remember that one when they did the dance contest?
No.
Don't remember.
Vaguely.
Anyways, we'll keep it going. So Shaggy, he's the stoner character that everybody thinks of. His expression was zoink. That was his thing. And zoinks means to express surprise or fear.
Basically, a bunch
interesting-
of weird words for surprise.
So one of the interesting things I saw about Casey Kasem was that he voiced Shaggy until he died, except for in the live movies. But at one time, he almost quit the show because they wanted him to voice a Burger King commercial. And Casey Kasem was vegan. So he told them if they did not make Shaggy vegan, that he was going to quit. So they met in the middle and Shaggy became a vegetarian. So if you notice at one point, Shaggy doesn't eat meat after this happened.
Take a stand, Casey.
Yeah, just a couple
Maybe
things
just
about the
Scooby
characters.
snacks.
Shaggy and Scooby are the only two characters to be in every version of Scooby-Doo. Like all the different ones from the beginning to the end. Because there was a time where they took Fred and Daphne off, and then there was a time where Velma wasn't on there.
I wonder why.
Well, they
Yeah.
tried adding new characters. I think maybe there was too much. And at one time they said Fred and Daphne were too boring. So they tried to bring on like Flim Flam, and I don't know if y'all remember all of them, but like
Kind of.
yeah. After the revamp, they approved it. They thought it was good to go, and it actually became the center stone of Saturday morning cartoons. They think the reason that it was such a big hit was it appealed to children, adults, and actually, speaking of children, girls. Because most of the cartoons, like you were talking about earlier, were designed for boys.
Yeah.
And the execs for the big TV stations and the broadcast and stuff thought if boys will watch it, anybody watch it. And it was kind of a thing. So this one was really popular with girls. So that was, different than some of the stuff that was going on.
Yeah, I could see the appeal. Daphne was cute. I loved Velma. And then it's animals, so
Yeah, and it was funny, slapstick, good music. And also Scooby-Doo was the first cartoon to have a laugh track to it. So if you'll notice though, that when they remastered the old episodes and re-released them later on, they took the laugh track out of them. But they used to bring it back every now and then to kind of show homage to the old episodes.
I remember a lot of skidding noises. Like if they would run and go,
yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. The brakes like that. For some reason, that's what comes to mind.
So one thing I forgot to mention was that after the revamp, the original title was going to be Who's Scared? Like somebody saying Who's Scared was going to be the original title. That was the title that actually got approved by CBS before they released it. But before they did, they ended up changing it to Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? So the original title, Scooby-Doo, Where Are You, came out in 1968 and ran till about 71. You know, it was the same premise. And then in 72, instead of a half-an-hour episode, they made an hour-long episode, and they started adding guests to go on their missions with them. If you'll remember, there was like Mr. T, the Three Stooges,
Batman.
Yeah, Batman and Robin, the Globetrotters, Sonny and Cher, Elvira.
Wow. They were an hour long?
Yes, Don Knotts was even on there.
I remember him. You don't remember Don Knotts?
I'm saying, like, as a cartoon character, I'm not like the Globetrotters, Batman, Madonna, Don Knotts.
Barney!
You know what I mean? Like,
Well, I don't think Madonna was on there.
I know, but I'm just saying, in my world.
Actually, in the later ones, I have a list of some characters that came in the later ones.
It would have been amazing if Prince and Madonna were on there. I'm just.
Oh man, what is it?
If I was gonna have guest cartoon
so
characters.
in the ones that came out like 2002, they had Smash Mouth, Urkel or Jaleel White, Weird Al Yankovic, Jeff Foxworthy, Mark Hamill, and Christian Slater were some of the names that I found.
Christian
that's cool.
Slater. He's a perfect cartoon character with his voice.
So after the Scooby-Doo movies, which were in 1972, in 76 was the Scooby-Doo show. And this is where they kind of took some characters off. And if you'll remember, they had Dino Mutt, All-Star Laugh Olympics, the buggy races. Remember the race where they had the different races?
Wacky races?
Yeah, wacky races and stuff like that. Then in 79, they needed another kind of revamp. So this is when they brought Scrappy-Doo in, and Scrappy-Doo was a big flop. He did not get received well by audiences, so
He's
he was
like
annoying.
let me at him. Let me at him. So
aggro
he's
dog
actually
with
Scooby's-
middleman syndrome. Like, why would no? Thank you.
And so this is where we start coming in our memories of it. They released the new Scooby-Doo Mysteries, and this was the original gang, same premises, new mysteries, Scrappy-Doo, and then his relatives would end up popping in on these ones. Let's see, his dad's name was Dada-Doo, Mumsy-Doo was his mom, brothers were Skippy-Doo and Yabba-Doo, which he's a triplet. His sister was Ruby-Doo, which was Scrappy-Doo's mom, and then he has a bunch of cousins. He has Scooby-Dum, Scooby-Dee, Doobie-Doo.
Remember Scooby-Dum?
Yeah. Dixie-Doo, and then his uncles, Horton-Doo, Whoopsie-Doo, and Nasty-Doo.
Wow. Ew.
Uncle
I don't even want to know
Nasty-Doo.
what
I know.
Uncle Nasty.
Yeah.
Isn't that like a wrestling
Jeez.
move, like the Nasty Uncle, or am I?
I don't know.
I
It
know.
sounds like
I'm
a
just
sex
playing.
move.
So this was the same premise, but they would bring in different characters from Scooby's family. So in 1985 were the 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo.
Yes.
I do.
Yep.
That was
That's
one
the
of my
first thing I remember.
favorites.
Right. So this was the gang was all back together, and they were traveling the world attempting to capture the most terrifying ghosts in the world. The main villain was Vincent Van Gogh, and he was kind of modeled after
please
Doctor
be-
Strange. Like he had the two gray
I
stripes,
remember
you know.
that. Was it
Yep.
actually Vincent Van Gogh? I mean, not Vincent. Was
Vincent
it,
Van Gogh was his name.
Yeah.
I'm
Vincent
picturing
Price?
Vincent Price. Thank
Yes,
you.
yes, it
Yes, it
was him.
was.
That's who he voiced
Yes.
it. Yes, and it was modeled after Doctor Strange and Vincent Price.
That's awesome.
So this was the series where they also had Flim Flam, which if you saw Flim Flam, you would remember him. He was a small child with dark hair in like a yellow jumpsuit.
Kind of.
Yeah,
I'm
if you see
getting it,
him, you'll
yes.
remember him. Like
That
he
was
always
his name though.
Flim Flam. Yeah,
Yeah, I remember that outfit. I think because he had
And
like a.
what I thought was kind of funny was the names of the episodes were they all kind of had pun names, like A Spooky Little Ghoul Like You, When You Witch Upon
Oh,
a Star.
yeah. I do remember him.
When you
He was
witch
like the
upon
young
a
kid.
star.
And to all the ghouls I've loved before, just
Aw.
so the titles were names like that. I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, those are cute. All the
And then
little-
in 1988 was a pup named Scooby-Doo. So this took the game back to the elementary days. Back to Coolsville was the name of their hotel. So Coolsville Elementary. And this was more of like a Looney Tunes style because it was the same creators as Tiny Toons, Animaniacs. So this was kind of in that animation. And, it was just the gang still solving mysteries. And they were kids in elementary school. And something you'll remember was there was a kid at the school named Red Herring, and he was like this redheaded kid, and it was based on the pun of a red herring. So Fred always thought it was Red Herring, like he would always accuse of Red Herring. Of being like the villain. It never was. I think one time it actually was, but it was the time where he didn't accuse Red Herring of doing it. But
dude, I loved that one. I remember when that was coming out, and my mom was dragging me around with her to some of her friends' houses because obviously she wasn't going to leave an 8-year-old alone. So I remember going to this house, and I'm like, Mom, a pup named Scooby-Doo is coming out. It's coming out today, and I want to watch it. And she was like, okay, fine. So we go over to this house, and she's got her granddaughter there, and I got the granddaughter all hyped up. We were watching the clock, waiting for it to come on. I want to say 10 a.m. or something. And we were waiting. And every time a half an hour would go by, like we'd turn it on, and it wouldn't be there. And we're like, 10 a.m. came, and football was on, and I about had a meltdown. I was like, where's Scooby-Doo? And I was like, oh, maybe the channel's wrong. So we got the TV guide. We looked at the TV guide and looked up the channel. Guide. We were like, oh my God. And so football replaced the Saturday morning cartoon for that day. If an 8-year-old could have gone ballistic and murdered things, I probably would have, because I was so obsessed with Scooby-Doo, and I wanted this cartoon so bad because it was new, fresh, and it was so cool. And me and this little granddaughter were so disappointed. We were just like, I was so mad. But it was supposed to be on.
I'm sure she talks about it in therapy to this day. Like,
probably like this guy.
And I'm also like, and Garrett has hated sports ever since. Like the downfall of sports. Never.
Don't mess with Scooby-Doo.
So that lasted a couple seasons. Between 98 and about 2000, there were no new episodes. They reran a lot of them, of course, and they came out with a lot of animated movies, like solo movies. They weren't a show. It would be like an hour-long movie, and they would just pretty much release them on DVD. So there was like 30 of them. You'll remember there were like Zombie Island, and there was a lot of different characters.
Like the direct-to-video ones. Is that what you're talking about?
Yep. And so in 2002, I'm not going to really go into these. I'm just going to go over the timeline. But 2002 was the What's New Scooby-Doo. That was the original gang back together, new missions. And then, of course, you remember the movies, the live-action movies with Freddie Prinze Jr. and all them. So recently, they've redone a lot of these, and they're really good. I don't know if you've seen them, like Mystery Incorporated. No. Oh man, you gotta check them out. So Mystery Incorporated is a dark animated series, so it goes in their past, and it's more of a dark, serious take on the show.
What is that on?
Mysteries Incorporated might be on Netflix. It's on one of the streaming services. I've watched it before.
Yeah.
And so there's a new one. It's Be Cool Scooby-Doo. Scooby-Doo and Guess Who and Scooby-Doo A New Universe are all on streaming services. I haven't really watched any of them except for Mystery Incorporated. That one was really good.
I'm looking at it now. The animation looks really good too.
Yeah, it is. So over the years, Scooby-Doo has made almost $10 billion.
No.
And yep, it's one of the highest earning brands of all the animated series.
Yeah, serious.
I got you.
You got me. You feel what I'm saying here. So there's been 3 live movies. There's been a video game series for Game Boy, N64, PlayStation, Xbox. And there was even a plug and play. It's a Mystery Machine controller, and you just plug it in to the TV, and it had the controllers in the Mystery Machine. I saw that. There's been all kinds of Scooby-Doo board games, like of Guess Who version of Scooby-Doo, Scooby-Doo Chess, Monopoly, their own version of Clue, and Escape from the Haunted Mansion.
Oh, that does make sense. I want that. That's cool.
Yeah, like if we're solving the mission.
It was called, I think, Clue-Doo. Maybe. Yeah.
Go look that up too.
Of course, there's been action figures, Lego sets, stuffed animals, even a Scooby-Doo line of dog toys that was out for a while. There's been a Scooby-Doo series of Chuck Taylors and vans. They have roller coasters, different theme parks all across the world. There's even a Scooby Dogecoin and NFTs that are out right now, if you're into that kind of thing.
No.
I don't even know what you're talking about right now.
But I vaguely know what an NFT is, and I'm not crazy about them.
Yeah, it's the future, man.
I know.
And there was actually even a comic book series of Scooby-Doo also. It was a 36 issues based in the future. So the zombie apocalypse is broken out. The gang is still together, and they're going around the country looking for the cure and solving mysteries and trying to find the cure for the zombie apocalypse. Yep.
So it's like The Walking Dead meets Scooby-Doo.
Pretty much. It's called
Wow.
Scooby Apocalypse. Yep.
These
You
Chuck
are
Taylors are
blowing
going for like
my
$150
Oh, that's nothing
Wow.
for a pair. Yeah.
for
I think
Scooby-Doo. For Chuck
Patrick's
Taylor?
paid way more than that for a pair of Chucks.
Really?
Like, dude, you know, like back in my day, you could buy those for $20, bro.
I was saying the PX for $8. You remember that? We got them at the
Yeah.
PX for $8.
We used to get them for summer shoes. Like they would buy them just so we could tear them up during the summer. So
Right.
some of the fan theories, there's some pretty funny ones. Some of the fan theories was, of course, that Shaggy and Scooby are potheads because they always have the munchies. They're always the ones that see the monsters first, and they always look real. And there's some evidence to this because if you watch it, sometimes the Mystery Machine will just have smoke coming out of it for no reason, or like Shaggy will just have a random corncob pipe for no, you know. And I'm like, wait a minute here.
I thought that was the version that was for the adults when they said they made it for adults and kids. They're like, yeah, let's do a little wink, wink, nod, nod.
Some of the other fan theories are that Scooby, his family is actually mega rich, and that's how the group supports each other because none of them ever work and they're always going places and stuff like that.
That's true.
Yeah, they don't get like paid for the mysteries. They just happen to be there.
One I thought was funny is that Scooby is actually a space experiment from the Soviet Union. That's why he can talk. They said he escaped the project in the USSR and he defected to the US. And the show is called Where Are You? Because the CIA is looking, they know he's in America and they're looking for him. So like,
oh my God.
I thought that was pretty good. Another one is that the group is all draft dodgers from Vietnam. And the reason they're traveling around the country is because they're on the run from dodging the draft.
Okay.
I mean, it was that era when it came out.
I know.
It was.
Although, I don't know, maybe that's part of the plan. I would have a more inconspicuous vehicle, but at the same time, maybe that they're like, clearly they wouldn't drive such an obvious vehicle.
Like the Transformers are hiding in plain sight, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So, but wasn't there a peace sign on the Mystery Machine?
I think so. Yeah. I think there was. Maybe
there was flowers for sure.
So another one is that Scooby snacks are actually steroid-filled biscuits that give him superpowers. I don't know.
I was thinking maybe weed brownies, but sure, that's
they said because Fred is like the leader of the group and always wants to drive, even though the Mystery Machine is actually Shaggy's, but they're saying that Shaggy's too high to drive, so Fred's like the all-time DD. You know?
See, that's good. That's a PSA right there.
Right? That is good. They were responsible.
I got a couple more that. So one of the ones I thought was funny was that Shaggy is actually Captain America's son. You know, his name is Norville Rogers, Steve Rogers, and that he actually has superpowers.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And they said that he is probably actually a wizard, but he's too stoned to realize it.
That's kind of funny.
What are you reading on these? Where are we
they're
getting
saying
this?
sometimes every now and then, like he does stuff that humans shouldn't do, you know, so.
Okay.
And they said that every episode is actually just one really bad acid trip. Like and then the last one is that the Scooby Gang is actually a cult, and they travel around from town to town recruiting for their cult. I just thought it was funny. So
I mean, it worked. They made $10 billion. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Welcome to the cult.
How do I join?
Yeah, we're already joined, guys. We're talking about it 40 years later. You know?
Yeah. So that's my Scooby-Doo hunk. I thought that was some pretty good stuff in there.
That was good.
No, I always make so many notes. I'm like, where does he find it? I think you have a secret stash of something.
We'll definitely put a lot of these links in our show notes. Make sure you're checking out all of our social media. And please leave us some good stories, comments, anything.
I want to hear your memories of when you first saw some of these. And I agree. If you have any suggestions, because we're doing a whole line of Saturday morning cartoons. I know when I asked people, Scooby-Doo was one that everybody mentioned. But if you have ones that you want to bump it to the top, vote it up. And then Jem is truly outrageous.
Let's see who the villain really is.
That's not Aaron. It's Old Man Jenkins. That's all I got.
Show's over, Synergy.